Right, I'd like to talk to you about how we become narcissistic through the law of attraction. So I spoke about this many times. I went through a process of being diagnosed with narcissistic behavior, took full responsibility for it, told it wasn't couldn't be healed, and went through a process of healing it. And coming out of the other side and integrating all of that process through purification and exposure with my partner, so with the opposite sex. When I went deeper and deeper and deeper, I started getting more and more of that narcissistic behavior out of me, and then the light would come in. So it's like an exchange, darkness for light, but not darkness, ego. Loads and loads of ego deaths, loads of how do I say, walk-ins, ascension, and moving past illusions, moving through psychology into really like advanced shamanism, through demonology, through all of the darkness, everything that constricts us on a really deep and divine, powerful journey over the past 4 or 5 years with plant medicine, and before that, loads of other different methods of healing. So many that it made my head spin. And when I got deep enough, I started to remember some core memories that I'd lost from my childhood. And one of those core memories was the choice that I made, where I went from a really compassionate, loving, innocent, just incredible child, because that's how we're born. We're essentially born superhuman. I learned that as well. But we're attacked as soon as we land, essentially, because of, that's a whole other story. I won't go into that right now. But what I learned is that there was a core choice where I made, and I see that everybody makes it at this age, is where there comes a certain choice point where you have to choose to live by your heart or survive. And when I was a young child, I think it was about 5 or 6, the memory, I think I was 6, where my family had a very belligerent divorce, and I was the youngest out of 3, and it hit me really hard. And the household became very belligerent, very violent, and everything I said, whether I smiled, laughed, was polite or anything, I would be beaten. And so I started to be programmed through that behavior that violence was love. And it wasn't until one day when I had to make a choice. Do I continue to allow myself to be beaten, or do I fight back? And that was the choice I made from the law of attraction, of attracting love to attracting narcissistic behavior and violence. And what happened was, because I was brainwashed so deeply by violence, I took that to school and I started beating my friends. I know it sounds absolutely crazy, but I thought that was love. And I did that for several years until I was exposed and humiliated in front of the whole class by my headmaster. And it was a really deep wound. And I hurt a lot of people, but I thought I thought that was love. I was completely brainwashed, and it followed me throughout my whole life. Like when I left, when I went into my teenage years, I would be walking up the park to meet my friends, and a gang would come along and punch me in the face for no reason, no aggravation, nothing. I wasn't that kind of man or child or teenager. I got hit round the back of the head with a bat one time, walking up the road with my friends, didn't do anything, and nearly a life-ending violent exchange in at university, where I was really drunk and I stumbled into a chip shop, knocked a guy's chips out of his hand, and he threw me down to the curb. My head hit the curb, and then he used my head for about with a football, like a football, for about a minute and a half. And he went absolutely crazy, tried to kill me, and loads of people tried to pull him off. And it was a big event, destroyed my whole life. That happened when I was in the year 2000. And I spent the rest of my time going deep into healing all of that. I was diagnosed with all these diagnoses, CPTSD, bipolar, autism, narcissistic behavior, all this stuff. And I was told that none of it can be healed. And I was like, no, I don't believe that. And so I went on a really deep process of healing. I tried everything that I could think of: psychotherapy, psychiatry, yoga, Pilates, biohacking, nutrition, injections, crazy injections. I went really experimental, intense exercise, martial arts. And then I came on to plant medicine. That's when my journey really took an enormous turn. But even then, I had to navigate the traps, the narcissistic traps that are in there, especially with the spiritual community, the heart bypassing and the charlatans that pose as shamans. So it's been an incredible journey, and it wasn't until my medicine journey really changed until I met my partner and we started working just us two opposite each other, and that's when everything changed. And we are creating a foundation for these kind of people on our Prophecy Walkers YouTube channel. An amazing idea, and I would take this opportunity to just say, please welcome your donations. We do this as a full-time job, and we've run out of money. We've been living on savings for the past 4 years doing this internal work, and we're trying to bring it out to the people, and it's very difficult. We've been stopped so many times by dark coalition, let's say, for lack of a better term, loads of sabotages, and we're trying to come out, and we're almost homeless. We've got to pay rent soon, and we've received quite a few donations, but we're quite a distance away from meeting that target. So please, please, really welcome your donations. So I will now go into how we become narcissistic through the law of attraction. So I am writing a book about narcissism because narcissism is profound. It's profoundly dangerous, profoundly evil, for lack of a better term. And essentially, if you go deep enough with it, like back to creation itself, you can understand that it's actually anti-love, it's anti-life, it's anti-Christ, because what it does is it creates stagnation. But what I want to talk to you about is that choice that we make where we choose to perpetuate and behave narcissistic through the law of attraction. And I know a lot of people are interested in the law of attraction to bring abundance, but we're not attracting abundance if we're attracting narcissistic behavior. So I hope this is very helpful for you, but it's also maybe triggering for you because I'm going to point out some things that perhaps you haven't noticed before in yourself. And this does apply to everyone. This really does. But as I always say, triggers are really, really valuable healing tools because if there is a trigger, that means there's a truth there, and that means you can turn that towards yourself. And like for example, if you have the trigger and you want to say something negative, feel what that negative is and trace it back to the wound. Ask yourself, where does this come from? Show me a memory. And you'll get this memory and you can start to work on healing that. Anyway, I'm going to start. So I channel wrote this because it's so big. So I'm going to read what I wrote. Okay, how we become narcissistic through the law of attraction. It starts with a choice. As children, we are love. We crawl, walk, and run around as loving beings. However, if we have a mother or father who was abused and thought having children would be a great idea before healing their own abuse, which is pretty much what everyone does, then they would unconsciously and unmistakably pass this learned abusive behavior onto children through the womb and through behavioral energies, which is essentially every parent. Now, this happened. I found on my journey how this happened. I was getting visions of sexual abuse, and I was like, but I've never received sexual abuse, and I started to get paranoid. Like, have I? Was I abused by my family? That's how deep I went. And then I realized I spoke to my mother about it, and she was sexually abused when she was a child, very young. And when I was working with my partner, Hazel, opposite her, we journeyed into that and realized that that energy that my mother hadn't cleared from her womb was passed through into me in the womb. So this is how wounds are passed on. And this is why there's all these really unconscious judgments against women because and why they're demonized because essentially through this through this rebirth, this passing on, women are birthing, continually rebirthing this into the world, and it's really profound. And as a man, I've taken responsibility for that, so that I can say, no, this stops here. I won't pass this on to the feminine. I won't pass this on to the masculine. So it's really profound. Most people would ignore the fact and strongly deny that their parents exhibited or taught them narcissistic behavior. If you believe that, then prepare to be shocked because it is inevitable. The reason it is denied is simply because it is not recognized or brought into conscious awareness. So, a great example of this is covert narcissism. Covert narcissism is so invisible, it's very difficult. It's like the needy child. It's like, oh, the puppy eyes and everything. And it's just really below the belt. Whereas most people will think, narcissism is like the poster child. It's like the malignant one, the manipulative one, the grandiose one. But there's at least 12 archetypes of narcissism. There's sexual narcissism, covert narcissism, self-righteous narcissism. Um, Gosh, there's so many. Covert, grandiose, malignant, benign. Benign's a really interesting one. It's people who I dated a partner who had benign narcissism. We have more than one different type of them, but some of them are more prominent. And her expression of benign narcissism was instead of talking about her emotions, she just wanted to go out and have fun all the time. And it's really easy to fall for like that because I like to have fun. There is no such thing as a pure parent. This is true because if there were, they would be a divine being, a walking, talking guru, and that has never been accomplished in partnership with the opposite sex. Never. It's difficult to recognize abuse that we were programmed to accept from such a young age because despite words, it comes from vibration, and that vibration comes through different energies of feeling, invisible to the eyes, ears, and mind, and we are all in the same boat. So this was my process. When you try to use the mind and be logical about you're not going to get there because you have to work with the feminine side of the mind and the feminine side of the heart, come into the body and feel it. This isn't not mental. It's not mental. Mental health is spiritual because it encompasses the physical, the soul, the mental, and the emotional. And all of this all originates through the process that the soul has to go through in order to feel the emotions. And if the emotions aren't felt and they're rejected or avoided, it creates narcissistic behavior, which essentially is attachment to something that isn't yours, and it perpetuates. So most of this is passed down from our parents or caregivers. And when I use the word caregiver, I mean someone who has had a strong influence on your life, so someone you've opened your heart to. So it could be a brother, a sister, a cousin, a boss, a teacher, a partner, or a friend, essentially someone you gave access to your heart, right? So a lot of different people that could be. At some point during childhood or even later in our lives, our love becomes the enemy of someone we love. I have unfortunately been through this more times than I can count. Your innocence of love becomes too painful or too much for them. So when you start to grow, when you start to shine, people kick off. In my example, I was beaten or shouted at when I expressed the love of who I am, both violent in their vibrational abuse. So I experienced physical and emotional abuse, which taught me to believe my love was painful and violent to others. So I bought the lie that my love was dangerous to myself and others because I had not developed boundaries to protect myself. How could I at the age of 5 or 6 when my attacker was a lot bigger and a lot older than me? My heart was emotionally violated, and so I walked around with this energy of violence, and people became intimidated by me. Yeah, I used to get this a lot. Unconscious judgments that I was really intimidating, but I'm just like this really kind man. But I had this big frame, and because I had this energy of violence that had been beaten into me, I think that's what people were afraid of. And so I started to attract that energy of violence, even though I'm gentle by nature. And this is why I got my ass kicked so many times because I didn't want to hurt anyone. I didn't fight back, so I had to learn martial arts. I embodied their lie. So that violence that I received, I embodied their lie. I embodied that. I became the lie essentially. And so my energy pushed and pulled that energy, attracting more of that behavior into my life. And this is the law of attraction. This evolved into the different types of narcissism that exhibited those behaviors. Malignant narcissism from my caregiver, so that violence energy made me hide inwardly from myself, which created covert narcissism. So covert narcissism is very introvert, right? And it's very victim-based narcissism, whereas malignant is it comes out when nobody's looking. It's very violent and it's very what's the word perpetrator in the drama triangle. It's not that I was emitting that energy, it's that why was I emitting that energy of attraction? I might sound like an extreme example to you. So let's use a milder example to help you gain deeper clarity, right? So, what if you were bullied at school? What if you were bullied for being fat or ugly or something else, wearing glasses, whatever, but you weren't actually fat or ugly and you were slim and beautiful. So you thought somebody thought you called you names that you were fat and ugly, but you actually weren't, right? But what if you were actually being bullied because you were beautiful and talented, and that bully was jealous of you for that? That's what I went through. It all came through jealousy. At first, it's just one bully, but then other people join in. They see what that other person saw, that bully. They see someone magnificent, and it makes them feel less magnificent because they also experience low self-esteem due to narcissistic behavior influenced on them as children. You can see this as in celebrities where people who start to become successful and you get a lot of fans who either show them love or try to tear them down. The ones who are tearing them down are jealous because it's that mirror of light that's showing them that they have that ability to be successful as well, but because they're choosing not to, it hurts and it creates that trigger of jealousy. But essentially, jealousy, if you turn it around into its light, where it comes from, it's actually, if you turn it into love, it's actually admiration that can't be processed, and that's where toxic shame evolves. When it can't process, it becomes jealousy. Now, imagine that narcissistic behavior is now being fired at you. That bully has taught you through abuse that you shouldn't be beautiful. This is what happened to me, and so you go about making yourself ugly. This is what happened to my partner. She was bullied essentially for being beautiful, and she started going home on the bus home, and she was on this really long bus route, and when everybody got off, she would stop at the sweet shop and eat loads of sweets, and essentially she got really big. And a lot of women do this to protect their sexuality because essentially it is about life force. It's about that life force that we hold, and that is linked to our innocence and our sexuality and our beauty. So that bully taught me through abuse that we shouldn't be beautiful, so we go about making ourselves ugly. Now, you start to sit on your own, you start to eat sweets to comfort you, you start to eat and eat until you protect and cover that beauty with fat, right? Like I said, so that nobody can see it because you were taught that it was hurtful to others. So this is really profound. So you bought the lie of being fat and ugly, and now you have embodied it. Now you emit the energy of being unattractive. And so because you emit that energy of unattraction, you believe that everything you do is unattractive. This can affect your work, your confidence, because it teaches you to see everything you created as unattractive. Again, this is the law of attraction. And so later, I'm going to discuss how you turn that energy around to attract the truth of love into your life. These are both real life examples of narcissistic coping mechanisms that help us avoid feeling the toxic shame. But if we do wish to free it, we have to feel it. And this is what I was saying earlier, because it is the avoidance of feeling love for yourself. We get programmed by other people's narcissistic behavior to essentially destroy ourselves and to disown ourselves, and not disown, that's not the right word because we don't own ourselves, but to deny ourselves, to deny our love. And now ask yourself, so now ask yourself, What if you were that bully, right? So let's turn the story around. Instead of being the victim, now you're the perpetrator, right? Do you dare see where you have been the abuser? The first action you may take is looking back into your memories and current life to see where you have been the bully and decide you have never bullied anyone, right? Now, look inside. Have you ever told yourself anything negative towards yourself? Have you ever told yourself you're not anything less than fantastic? Now, can you tell yourself without lying that you're not a bully? It's impossible. And the more you deny that wound, the more shame will arrive to cover that wound. That is narcissism. Now tell me you're not a narcissist. Do you see now? Everyone is playing the same toxic game of pointing the finger at everyone else except their self. This only creates a never-ending loop, which we will discuss. So, you want to blame someone else, don't you? You may even want to tell me I'm speaking complete nonsense, that I do not know what I'm talking about, I'm wrong, etc. Blame is the shadow of responsibility. And blame is just a form of separation, passing on the buck. That is narcissism because the trigger is pain. Pain is touching the wound. If there is a wound, it means I touched it. If I touched your wound, that means it is there and it is true. When we lash out, we look to blame someone so that we do not have to take responsibility for that wound. This is toxic shame avoidance, and so we lash out through our triggers. Blame is the wound of the warrior. You have been programmed to fight everyone, including yourself, and if there is no fight to fight, then you believe you will cease to exist, that you will be made redundant, that you will die. This is what I had to go through. It was horrendous. How do you end the fight with yourself? This is the antidote to bipolar. That is true, but it is your ego that is going to die. A spiritual death, not a physical death. But your ego will try every trick in the book to tell you otherwise. When you take responsibility and acknowledge your betrayal, you are making a sacrifice in the name of love. And the soul piece you gave away will come back in its place due to your great sacrifice. So I do a video on soul retrievals and walk-ins, which explains that. And when you receive that, when you sacrifice your ego and you receive that part of your soul back, that's the reward from yourself, from spirit, for your acknowledgement and responsibility. This is how you evolve. This is how we recreate ourselves. This is how we ascend, by taking responsibility and acknowledging what we have done to ourselves, what we have done to others, and then letting it go through forgiveness, through feeling it, through grieving, crying, through dancing, rage. There's so many different ways we can integrate it and remove it from our system. The secret is to know and agree to yourself that triggers are helpful, right? So we've spoken about that. To be felt and understood, to be acknowledged, and by taking responsibility for them, you can trace it back to the wound that created it and heal it, not blame it, heal it. I will use myself as an example. I was the primary school bully from the age of 6 to 11. I spoke about this earlier. I was unaware I was a bully. I genuinely believed that by punching my friends and throwing them to the floor, I was showing them love. And I could not understand why they resisted. This is so wild. This is deep programming. I was beaten by my caregivers, and so I learned that violence, bullying was love. As an adult, I felt enormous shame for that, and I could have blamed my caregivers, which for a number of years I did, but it just created more avoidance inside me and more anger. So it got me nowhere. It just brought me back to bullying myself, because through blaming others, we are actually blaming ourselves, because we are one. By taking responsibility for the bullying I received, it stopped with me, which means I do not pass that bullying energy onto anyone I love, anyone full stop, and they can live free and safely in my presence. This is really profound, because instead of going from being intimidating from a feeling of violence, um, I get I now get intimidation because I'm such a nice guy, or I'm so much love. And it's the intimidation is this fear of death. That's what it comes from. When people emit light and their ego is in control, light kills the ego, and so it's all about this fear of death. So you just have to overcome that by just acknowledging it and just moving through it. This is profound energetic magic, which can, if you understand this and you can receive this, this can change the entire world, right? Because narcissism is the root of all evil, really. When you really study and understand it, everything in society that isn't love all goes back to toxic shame avoidance. Because if you think about it, and I've thought about this so many times and I've felt it and I've gone deep and I've done so much on it, right? Is that if there is something that has not been felt within you, if there's something that makes you angry, if there's something in society like war, for example, politics, anything essentially that creates separation, it all comes from a wound, an emotional wound. And if that wound exists, that means it hasn't healed. So it can even show up as physical injuries or disease. And the only reason that it exists is because that emotion hasn't been felt and acknowledged. I speak about the power of acknowledgement. It's the secret to healing anything, because acknowledgement is a form of love. And when you bring that acknowledgement, you're taking responsibility for that love and it can pass out of your body. Because, like I said, emotional attachment creates toxic shame avoidance. And if you're holding on to it, it creates stagnation. It's like sewer water getting blocked inside you. You have to let it go so that it flows out. So, where was I? So yeah, this can change the world because that one choice that we make ripples out into the pool of consciousness of the collective because we're all linked by it, right? Because otherwise, how would it be passed down? Rule one, and it heals our ancestors and any children that we, it's like how do I say this? It's like say hundreds thousands of years ago, one of your ancestors did something really horrible, right? And that's like them throwing a boulder into or a pebble into a lake, and it creates a ripple, right? And those ripples continue to ripple until one of the descendants of that ancestor goes, no, stop, and those ripples stop and the lake becomes calm again, and that's peace in your bloodline, peace in your spirit, peace in your soul. And this is the one of the forms of ascension to enlightenment essentially, but it's not that simple because you have to go through healing all those ancestral wounds. We live in water because water is consciousness, right? We're surrounded by it. We are full of water and we walk and live in it every day. When it's cold and you breathe, you can see water coming out of your mouth because we're surrounded by it. Water holds memory. It is the consciousness. So all the water on Earth is traveling around holding the memory of humanity because water holds memory. There's so many studies on this. And that is why there is a water cycle so that it can be purified, transmuted, and repurposed by Gaia for higher consciousness. It is purified through the plants, the soil, the rocks, and all of nature plays its part in helping us do that. This is how loved we are. And this is why there is so much collective shame because we are polluting we're polluting nature, we are polluting the world. And so essentially, we're polluting those who love us unconditionally, our ancestors, Gaia, spirit, nature. And what if you continued that chain of your own abuse and continued to fire your responsibility as blame at others? You continue the chain and the whole circle begins again. So I speak about this, the cycle of narcissism. There's four steps and then it repeats. And we have the responsibility now. We're in this new paradigm now, this new love, this new earth. My partner and I are really pioneering something great to help people overcome these spiritual transitions and these ascensions. And we really welcome your donations for that. And I want to tell you what we're offering because it's really profound and it's really beautiful. And we've opened up Patreon. So it's called the Prophecy Foundation, and it's about healing separation, birthing a new earth, and restoring sacred union between man and woman. It's what my partner and I have been doing as part of our divine purpose that we've discovered on our journey. So I'm going to read what our mission is. So our mission, the Prophecy Foundation, exists to support individuals undergoing deep spiritual transformational awakenings and a sacred path of inner union. We are here to offer sanctuary, community, and soul level support for those navigating the collapse of old identities, relationships, and belief systems. This is not a charity in the old sense. It is a call to collective evolution, a sacred act of remembering who we truly are beyond the ego and into the full soul embodiment and sovereign birthright. Why we exist. In a world fractured by separation, disconnection, divorce, burnout, and isolation, especially for those on accelerated awakening paths, we saw the need for something radically different. A safe space for soul-led humans and walk-ins navigating breakdowns, spiritual awakenings, and rebirths. Support for those leaving old structures behind, jobs, marriages, belief systems with no roadmap for what comes next. A community for those birthing the golden timeline and pioneering new earth consciousness, often alone, misunderstood, or unsupported. What we do. Through your donations, the Prophecy Foundation provides new models, how do I say this, new economy models. We're pioneering a donation-based, purification of money, freedom-centered model for spiritual work, breaking free from the commodification of healing, art, and truth. Accessible soul support, one-to-one mentoring, group sessions, resources, and tools for those in spiritual crisis, transformation, or transition. Sacred union and relationship repair, support and education for conscious couples and individuals healing polarity wounds, navigating breakups, and anchoring divine union templates. Healing loneliness on the path, building conscious community and space of remembrance where no awakened soul walks alone again. Creative and spiritual expression, funding artistic, mystical, and channeled works that carry prophetic codes like Hazel's Soul Prophecy Oracle deck and the upcoming Prophecy Art exhibition. Publishing and legacy, we will create a publishing company to give voice to the exceptional, evolutionary, and visionary writers who deserve to be rewarded fairly and celebrated for their brilliance. Our vision, we envision a world where healing separation is the norm, not perpetuating it. Healing is sacred, not sold. Community of synarchy replaces competition and hierarchy. Everyone knows why they are truly here. Spiritual awakening is supported, not pathologized. Every soul is held through their return to love, no matter their income status or past. How you can help. Your donations support the deliverance of the foundation, the publication of the Soul Prophecy Oracle, which is the path to Ascension, the production of the Prophecy Art exhibition in spring 2026, free and sliding scale sessions for those in need, living expenses as we dedicate full-time energy to this mission, the build out of the Prophecy Portal, a sacred online sanctuary, equipment and the hire of new personnel to support this dream, our eventual retreat space and healing sanctuary in nature. Whether you give us 10, 20, 50, 100 or £10,000, we welcome that. You become part of the prophecy. Giving is receiving and receiving is giving. This foundation is rooted in peace, freedom, and redemption. We are not here to perpetuate old money systems or sell our souls as commodities. Instead, we walk the new path. This is a soul-led mission, a prophetic movement, a love revolution through the evolution of ascension in union. So please, I will leave the donation links and thank you for anything you can give. This really means a lot to me, to Hazel, to our tribe. We're building a tribe for what is coming, and we welcome you. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you. Bye-bye.